Hey, it's Don, the Auction Professor here. Today we're going to go way down south, and we've got a bolo from New Orleans. We're going to talk about Mardi Gras today. It's someplace I've actually been. I've been in season, I've been out of season. My wife's family actually grew up about 35 minutes away from downtown New Orleans, in Mississippi, actually. So I've been there many, many times. We've actually stayed in the Quarter, the French Quarter. I've been to Café du Mans many times. But we're going to cut over to the screen right now and talk about Mardi Gras. Now, here we are with Mardi Gras. Now, I only picked items that you would have gotten actually in New Orleans for the Mardi Gras itself, not for, like, commemoratives and odds and ends from other places that have nothing to do with this. Now, Mardi Gras actually encompassed, other areas. You've got Louisiana with New Orleans. You've got all of the Gulf Coast, basically, area around there. They had Mississippi floats and Mississippi events, even in Alabama as well. So it's not just one specific area, but everybody pretty much resembles it around New Orleans itself. So first item here is Crew of Muses. This is a shoe from 2019. Now, I know a bunch about Mardi Gras. My in-laws are actually part of a crew. If you didn't know, you actually have to pay to be a member of the crew. So it's a very expensive ordeal just to begin with, depending on the crew. Some of the crews take a ton of money just to be invited and to do work on the floats and things like that. The balls at the end, though, that's the culmination of the whole event, basically. And they do, commemorative pieces and things like this. This is a shoe, basically. It's a boot kind of thing, but it's got Blue Dog. Now, if you look up Crew of Muses on eBay and look through the comps, you're going to see a bunch of shoes. They average, $500-600 for a decent one. This is from New Orleans as well, too. So, anyway, $1,500 on this one. You got to know something about the area too. Some of the markings you see on some of these devices, you may not actually recognize unless you know something about the area and have seen the emblems. Now, the most popular is the Crew of Rex. And we're going to show you many different items from the Crew of Rex, but most people will recognize that figure from it. This is just another example of some of the stuff that you can find. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't look like it zooms in here. No, it doesn't. But this is a very expensive piece. This is an early commemorative piece, Knights of Rivalry. Now, there's some crews that don't exist, and there's some new crews that didn't start till later on. So, and in fact, here's another one of the shoes right here, almost 700. Very fanciful. They're handmade, hand decorated. These are very specific. You can't just go out and make one of these. Most people would know the difference. The items there, the connotations that it's tied to the crew itself. There's a lot to this, and this is from Louisiana as well, too. So, then the next one here is a gold pin, actually, 14 karat gold pin. I think this is Camus. They've got Cosmo at the bottom, or Camos. They've misrepresented the name on here. I've seen the figurehead as well, too. This one went for, well, almost $570. But it's gold, it's vintage, it's early. You can pin it down to somebody, literally, or something, or a specific place. Next one here is something that I actually like. This is a Victorian-era Mardi Gras ball, grand ball invitation. And this is just how fancy they were. It was a very expensive process, as I said, for any of this. Now, it's missing the original. I guess there would be an actual, maybe an insert card in there that you'd open it up and that would be in there with the actual itinerary for it. Either way, this is an awesome piece. $436. Next one here is a bulletin, or basically a poster in my book. It was probably rolled at the actual time. It's a Crew of Proteus. That's basically all their floats. There's tons of floats, and you can find miniature floats of some of these around that area as well, too. $400 basically on that one. Crew of Nearest. This is another one of those items that if you didn't know that that's who that is or what this is from, you might have missed this. Some of the items do not say what they are on them. You can see this is a vintage. Now, this is an early T-bar back here, too. Most of these pins, just like this, are usually handmade and can date to the, 19th century. A Civil War pin will look very similar to this construction. So, anyway, it's vintage, it's old, it's maker marked. Excellent piece, $386. Here's Crew of Alexis, along with what I would say would be like the owner of it prior to this. This is an early piece. It's well marked. just another perfect example. If you didn't know something about the whole aspect of this, you may not have actually recognized what this is. So 550 bucks basically on this one. Next one here is from Hadel's Bakery. Now, I was in New Orleans in 94. We went to Mardi Gras that year. This was something that was not common, but you would find makers of these or importers of these Mardi Gras king cake figures. Now, king cake's a big, basically like a O-shaped cake for the most part. It'll have multicolored purples and golds and greens on it. Inside the cake's usually a baby, and they've went a different route and have these scarce Handel's Bakery versions of them, of actual floats and characters from the Mardi Gras. So this is 360 bucks. This is something a lot of people may miss if they're not in a box. I've got one to show you later on in here as well too. Now, vases and stuff for Mardi Gras were very common. This one's inlaid with silver. You'll find similar ones from other states and stuff like this. But any of the ones that I have seen that say New Orleans on it with a date like this, any of these mini vases, even if they're not with the silver on it, are usually just for Mardi Gras, and it's just commemorating that event of that year. These go way back. I've seen them into the 1880s before for Mardi Gras, so it's just a real neat item. Sometimes they're little small miniature versions too, sometimes they're bigger. So size-wise, I can't say one size is worth more than the other because they're both fairly scarce, and there's a collector of the miniatures, and then there's collectors of the large size. So, I think they're about the same. This one's $355. Here's another crew of Proteus. Again, I picked items tied to the actual event, not ones that were produced in, Ohio or Florida Mardi Gras or something like that. These are ones that would be tied to crews and actually would have been, sold or acquired in New Orleans, during one of these events. So it's just an interesting section here of this. And this is the areas that we actually mess with. I don't go too far out and just, buying jesters and things like that and trying to put Mardi Gras on the title, trying to sell them. A true diehard collector is only going to buy a certain amount of items, the ones that are tied to it more directly. Now, this one here has a lotus flower. I would assume that's what this is. Enlightenment kind of thing. I'm going to show you another one with it that people mix up all the time, too, in just a few minutes here. And if you didn't know, it's K of P for Crew of Proteus, so that's K of P. Now, most people wouldn't know that. I've seen these pieces before. We used to source for probably 10 plus years through the Gulf Coast in New Orleans and all the way up in Mississippi, Alabama, and the whole works, and throughout Louisiana, actually. Been to many of the fairs and festivals and stuff, and a lot of the antique shops in the area. So we've seen hundreds of pieces from Mardi Gras in our day. So this is right up our alley. Next lot is a lot of Hadel's king cake figures. Just a perfect example of these. These are very popular, very sought out. Literally were embedded in the cakes before they cooked them. So anyway, $300 on this one. Next one's a Crew of Momus pin. Again, people would miss what this is. You might misrepresent what this was or not understand the value on something like this. This is $300. These are little pins, and some of the cheapo-looking pins that you see for $1 or $2 could be something like this. I'm big into pins and jewelry, so this area is really up our alley. And we used to scour the antique stores and flea markets and fairs up there all the time, constantly. I lived in Mississippi, so we sourced for Mardi Gras specifically items all the time. Comus now. Here we are. This is Comus, the one I was talking about just a little while ago. People think this is Buddha, like a Buddha tide, like a religious thing. It is not. It's just one of the emblems, enlightenment, the lotus flower. It's just an interesting piece. 268 bucks. Here's just a loving cup again, Crew of Rex. Now, we're going to fast forward in just a second here. Yeah, you can't really see any Rex on it. This is 550 bucks. Most of the longtime crews had all these balls and all kinds of souvenirs printed and stuff. It was a big money event as well, too, for the area. So, anyway. Now, here is Rex. This is what you're going to find. If you're really deep looking for this, Rex was the king of Mardi Gras, basically. So this is the one that everybody wants to be in. So Anyway, this is a sterling doubloon. Most people didn't realize there were sterling versions. These are probably handed out at a ball to the crew members themselves, and then they would actually just throw out the cheapo aluminum ones. Some of the aluminum ones are worth money. There's also bronze and brass versions, and some that are made out of nickel. 300 basically on this one. Just some invitations, 1895. Ball invitations, very plain. 250 bucks. Those were Momus again, sorry. Mithras, now this is High Priestess of Mithras. Just another crew item here, just like what you would expect. 1916, $228. Another pin, Crew of Proteus. Now, there's many different emblems on here. I loved the sea nature of it. It's right there on the coast. So if you haven't been to New Orleans, it's worth a trip. It's not the same since the hurricane. The whole coast is different. We used to source, as I said, on the Gulf Coast of Mississippi even. Nowadays, there's nothing other than high-end, uppity stores that literally carry nothing that I would be interested in. We scarcely got anything our trip here in December. We were in New Orleans in the area in December. $227. Another Crew of Rex item. Now, this says bonbon tray, but it could be a tip tray or anything along that line. $202. This one shows up. I've seen one of these in person. Never had one, but I've seen them before. I wasn't going to pay what they were asking for it. Some people overprice these drastically. Next one here is another Hadel's, $184. So very, very sought after king cake pieces. Some of the babies will go as well too, the normal ones. The Mystic Crew, Chronicles of Comus and his kin. This is just a book. This one does show up in that area. Some of them are limited, as this one is. There's crew books for most of them, and most of them do carry some value. So any Mardi Gras related book I do look up. Most of them won't have barcodes, the good ones anyway. This is from 1969, 180 bucks. Next one here is a Crew of Rex. It's a letter opener. Now, I've seen letter openers for all kinds of the crews. This is one of the more popular ones, $177. Next one's another invitation. Now, this is from 1930. It's a Crew of Rex admit card to the main ball, $200. So pay attention to these things. These are like the size of a postcard. So FYI, these do show up. Another invitation along the lines of what I would find and collect and sell. It's from 1889. It's die cut. To create this, they actually engraved these in the plates by hand. So it's a long, drawn-out process. $275 for that one. Bronze Rex one from 1962. The Rex has been around since the 1800s, so this is a late doubloon for overall status on Rex. King of the Carnival, as you see right there. $250. Parade sign. Now, these were cardboard sometimes, and I don't know, is this a metal one or not? And this one's actually a metal one, so that's why this one went for $120. The cardboard ones go for about $20 or $30. Now, again, I told you it costs a lot of money to be part of a crew. They invest some of the money and they give back, so people will get pins for being a member of, like, Comus or something like that. This is from 2015, $120. Now, this is something that I actually have. I have this exact Mardi Gras poster right here, and we have most of the same years that they are talking about. I met my wife in 89, and we actually went to New Orleans in 90, 91, 92, and 93. So we went, for vacation, things like that, saw our family, and then went to Mardi Gras. So these are something that I personally own right now, this exact one. $120. It's not super pricey, but we get like $30 a piece when we sell the vintage ones. Usually, it depends on which poster it is and who did it. Now, some artists did some very fabulous posters, and some of them can go for $1,000. It just depends on which ones you have. You could buy posters all over the place. You can buy them for crews. You could buy them for the event itself. You could buy some of the ones that were printed, for the city and things like that as well, too. So posters are always popular. It's a hand mirror here. It's Rex again. Just another example. Anything that you could imagine for anything else was available from Mardi Gras as well, too. So postcards. These are Raphael Tuck. So something like this is going to be a key item. Again, these are crews. Crew of Proteus, Crew of Momus, Comus, Rex right there, of course, plus the actual carnival flags. And they're Raphael Tuck. $107. This person may have done better listing these individually, say for 45 bucks, 57 bucks, somewhere in that range, and just let them run. That's what I would have done. I bet you $1,000,000 I would have got 50 bucks a piece for these. I just don't see these. They're embossed. They're a nice series. They're very scarce. I've only run across a couple of these in my life, so I honestly feel that these would have went for 50 bucks a piece if that's how you listed them. So never would have listed a Raphael tuck like this in a lot. I just wouldn't do it. Now these are one of the few items that I would tie to Mardi Gras in itself. I constantly found these when we used to source on the coast and in New Orleans, especially these specific glasses. Now, they have little stones on the outside. I am almost sure from all the talk that I've seen that these were available at locations that served alcohol. These are highball glasses, if you didn't know. Now, I've got a set of highball glasses that we actually use, and I've got some that we use for our A Clockwork Orange outfits that we do for the milk glasses, and that's what a highball glass is if you're just not sure on that, but that's a highball one. So this one here, though, always seems to sell whenever I've run across these, and I've had dozens of these individual glasses. I did sell them in a lot a couple of times too, but usually I run across one or two, and then sometimes I've waited and sometimes I've just sold them, but roughly 25 bucks to say 40 bucks a glass on these. Now here's a Death Wish coffee mug, and if you look right up top here, I got a link to a video I did just on Death Wish coffee mugs. Some of them can go into the $1,000 range, believe it or not. So this is an example from Mardi Gras, so just FYI, they made them for pretty much everything. Let's move on to the last one here. And the last one's just some beads. Now these are being sold from the area. I don't know how you could definitely pin these down to Mardi Gras specifically. Do they look like they would have been used in Mardi Gras? Yes. So they would sell that way. I would have probably sold them similarly because, you know, at some point they were glass beads when they were doing beads there, I would have imagined as well. I have never run into these. They're not high dollar. Most of the plastic beads aren't worth much. You can buy them in bulk here on eBay for hundreds of dollars for thousands of them. So, you know, it's not a huge area. It's a big business down in the South, in New Orleans and across the Gulf Coast. But anyway, that's what I have for you today. Well, there you go. There's another area that we do look for. Hopefully that gave you some ideas and some thoughts. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button down below. You can also hit the bell icon to be notified when I post new content or go live. Subscribe and tell a friend.